Okay, I think we're ready.
We're good.
I think so.
Okay, at this time, we'll call the October 24th, 2022 Board of Supervisors meeting to order. At this time, we'll have a roll call. Supervisor Lewis.
Present.
Supervisor Day.
Here.
Supervisor Ayers.
Yes.
Supervisor Lyons.
Here.
And Supervisor McDaniel present as well. We will now have a prayer for the board followed by a pledge of allegiance. Those attending are not required to participate, but if you'd like to join us, please stand.
Heavenly Father, we ask that you bless all that are in attendance tonight and all the people of Rockbridge County. We thank you for this beautiful day. Ask that you instill wisdom in all the supervisors so they might make the best decisions for the people of the county. Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will hold citizen comments near the beginning of the meeting. We'll do our best to take citizen comment remotely. There are two options for citizens wanting to offer a comment. To join by telephone, you may dial into one of the numbers listed on the county website. The webinar ID and password are there for your convenience. Citizens wishing to simply view the meeting live or after the fact can do so on the Rockbridge County Board of Supervisors YouTube channel, also available on the county website. If you wish to make a citizen comment as a Zoom meeting participant, you will use the raise your hand feature. You can press the raise your hand button at the bottom of the Zoom window or press *9 if you are calling in by telephone. All right. Are there any changes to the agenda tonight?
No, sir.
Are there any recognitions or presentations?
No, sir.
All right, citizen comments. Anyone signed up, Mr. Harrison?
There is no one signed up, sir.
Is there anyone in attendance wishing to address the board? Okay,
No, sir.
anyone online? No.
Oh, sorry. Nobody online.
And are there any written comments that need to be read in?
No, sir.
All right. The minutes, the October 11th minutes were continued to October 18th with the joint meeting at MSA, and then that was further continued to October 20th joint meeting with school board. So the meeting, the minutes for all of that will be available at the first meeting in November. We have consideration of the school appropriation resolution. Mr. Harrison?
Yes, sir. The total new grants, which is kudos to the schools, $1,630,152, and carryover grants in amount of $467,610. So a total of $2,097,762.
Is there any questions for Mr. Harrison? Is there a motion to adopt a resolution as presented?
I'll move.
And second?
Second.
All right. Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
Ms. Ayers?
Yes.
And Chair votes yes as well. Health insurance update from One Digital.
Yes, sir. I'm gonna promote Jim Gordon here. Okay, so Heidi Hoke spearheads these efforts along with a staff team, but she's under the weather. And so I'll be introducing Jim Gordon with our benefit plan advisors, One Digital, who you all know. Jim is joining us by Zoom to present the results of our first year of being self-funded. And with that, I will turn it over to Jim. Jim, you got us?
I do. I'm just trying to figure out how to show my screen. Mr. Suter, here we go. All right. Is that visible to everybody?
It is not.
It is not. Okay. There should be a shared feature. Just can't seem to put my hands on. I need some.
Let's try this. Hold on just a second. You're being promoted. I allowed you to talk on here, but you
Join
shouldn't.
as analyst.
There you go. Now you're muted and you should be able to share it. You are still muted, Jim.
There we go. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, good evening, good afternoon. Thank you, everybody, for having me on for a few minutes. As Mr. Suter said, he asked me to just give a brief overview this evening on kind of not only how we finished our first fiscal year 2022 with the self-funded plan, and then just a little bit of an update where we are year to date. On your screen, you'll see that we've got numbers going back to September of 21. Kind of listed in the left-hand column, and this is data that we're providing, updating monthly for the county and providing it to Ms. Hoke and the leadership staff. You'll kind of see, I'm just going to kind of focus on August 22, this bottom row, the top box. Enrollment has stayed pretty static and consistent. Currently through August of 2022, we have 220 employees and 301 members on our plan. If you look at the bottom box, just the very bottom row, which is fiscal year 2022, you'll notice that is claim data running July of 21 through the end of June of 22. And during that period, we finished, if you follow my cursor, with a 92% loss ratio. Which actually resulted in a surplus at the end of fiscal year 2022 of $146,851. And that actually averaged out to be about $8,000.76 or $8,076 per employee, which when we look at our benchmarking data, which I'll speak to in a minute, we're running well below that. We track data on a rolling 12-month period. When we do look at fiscal year 2023, which encompasses July and August 22 data to date, we are running a little bit high. We were at 121% loss ratio for the first 2 months of the fiscal 2023 plan year. I'm not too alarmed by that at this point. We had obviously a nice surplus we finished with for the 22 year of just under 147,000. We do have a deficit for the initial 2 months of just under $75,000, $74,903 to be exact, and for that period. Total claims the first 2 months are running about 415,000, but which is high, but that's being impacted by one large high claimant, which is an employee in the amount of 174,971, roughly 175,000, and that one individual is accounting for about 42.1% of claims year to date. So while it's not a great start to this fiscal year, I'm not really too concerned about it. We will see a lot more data before we get into the renewal period for July of 23. And so we don't currently have any large claims on the horizon that we're seeing of concern. So if we continue on that path, I would expect the data to improve throughout the fiscal year, and certainly would expect it would more align with the budget that we have in place looking forward. I mentioned that we finished the 2022 fiscal year averaging about $8,076 per employee in terms of total annual cost. We're obviously running a little bit higher than that now, just a little bit under 12,000, but that data is skewed. You can see if you really look at 2022 year and rolling 12 versus some historical benchmarking data where we're comparing it to government groups within the Southwest region and of similar size in terms of cost on a per employee per year basis. We're running well below that, and I would anticipate that we would see that continue as we go deeper into the year. We This report, which has some additional exhibits in it, is something we're providing the leadership group on a monthly basis, and we'll continue to do that and continue to keep the board updated as we go through it. But in summary, 2022 fiscal year ended nicely with a pretty decent surplus. And again, we're very early in 2023, and I would expect as we continue to report back to you, the numbers will continue to improve. So I will pause and take questions from the panel.
Board have any questions?
I don't have a question. I would just like to say that this type of data is exactly why we entered into this project, and it gives us so much more than I believe we've had before. So it's very insightful to me.
Under the paid claims experience, what is stop loss?
So when we have a self-funded plan like we do today, part of what we pay for is what we refer to as reinsurance. It's basic insurance protection against both any individual claimant as well as an aggregate for the group. We have an upside protection. In the column that you see stop loss, any group, we have a stop loss of $100,000. Anything that exceeds over that, you see a credit because that the reinsurance covers any claims over a specific defined dollar amount for an individual. We get credit back for that, and that does not count against the county as you move forward, because the reinsurance protects you against any individual significant claim as well as an aggregate for the whole group.
Mr. Lyons, Ms. Ayers, y'all have any questions?
And no, well, I guess I would just say that's why you can say that things will improve is based on that.
It's really more when I look at the data for the first 2 months. If I extract out the large claimant and break the remaining claim data down on a monthly basis, we're running more in line with what we would expect. So the group as a whole is not running significantly different than it has in the past year. It's running in line with what we really expect from a budget perspective. That data is just being skewed by this large claimant. Because we don't see any additional large claims emerging at this time, I would anticipate that as we capture additional months, this large claimant has, from the data we're getting, the claims have subsided. They kind of peaked, and have now regressed. And so unless something unforeseen were to pop up, I would expect future months to be positive, in line with budget, and we'll have additional premium to offset this so that it will continue to balance out.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Gordon, when taking into account, I know it's early on, not asking you for budgetary explanation, but do you think that the inflationary environment that we're in will drive prices up when we start looking at budget requests in the spring?
I mean, right now, Mr. McDaniel, what we're seeing is in the healthcare kind of field is that ambient trend is still maintaining kind of a 9 to 10% range, which is where it has been for a number of years now. We're not seeing a real spike in that. I think so. From that perspective, I'm not concerned about inflationary impacts from the cost of goods. It's more, I think what will impact the county is just utilization. And again, at this point, we, outside of this one large claimant, we seem to be running in line with what we've budgeted. So unless something emerges that's unforeseen in terms of what I would define as a catastrophic condition, I would anticipate that we should be well within our budget as we continue to move through the year.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions for Mr. Gordon? Well, thank you for the presentation and thank you for the update and look forward to hearing more from you in the future.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I appreciate you having me this evening.
Next up, we have consideration of the FY 2024 funding priorities. Mr. Harris.
Yes, this is this document. We've updated it just slightly at the recommendation of the Finance Committee. Before, one of the priorities was more of a generic term, public safety. And at their recommendation, we have changed that to fire and rescue to be more specific on that. This is a well-worded document, so kudos to the board and staff before me who've worked on drafting this, because it really does help paint a picture. There was at a recent executive committee meeting to possibly consider adding school security to that list of priorities. But that happened after the Finance Committee meeting, the executive committee.
And just for clarification, Mr. Harrison said, breaking out into fire and rescue, also law enforcement. So
Yes, thank you.
Those are the two changes.
it's just the one change, going from public safety to specifically calling out fire and rescue and law enforcement.
Mhm.
That's all I have on that, except that if I did feel like we should bring that up since the executive committee mentioned that if since there is funding available for school security, if that's going to be a part.
And the directives haven't really changed over this year. They're similar to last year, correct? Changes in that?
Yes, ma'am, that's
Okay.
correct.
Any questions or comments or?
I would just say that school security should just fall under funding of public education. It shouldn't be a separate item. I think we fund the schools and, if they need things in security, they put that in their funding requests.
I think it was, it's unfortunate, the society that we live in, that you have to talk about such things, school security and whatnot. But I think it was just more or less showing that to the public and to our educational sector of our community that we do support their safety and well-being and security of our schools, security of our children and all. But it's fine with me either way, whichever you prefer as a board.
Either way, I'll certainly it'll certainly be in the minutes of this meeting.
Is there a motion to adopt the resolution as is presented?
So move.
Second.
Yes.
All right. Mr. Lyons.
Yes.
Ms. Ayers.
Yes.
Mr. Day.
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
And Chair votes yes as well. Next up, we have consideration of the emergency operations plan. Mr. Ramsey, Chief Ramsey.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. So as you have in your agenda item, the state requires a political subdivision to readopt their emergency operations plan every 4 years. And it's that time for us to do that again. A little bit of history as presented last year. I just kind of step backward. We partnered with the Central Shenandoah Planning Commission or Planning District, not Commission, but through a grant that created this comprehensive plan that we have today with some minor changes. And it is a partnership between Lexington and Buena Vista, which worked very well during the pandemic and COVID. We created what we call as a task force early on, actually used parts and pieces of the plan. And I think it's well written. Before that, we were kind of on our own, dating back to 2010 or pre-2010 before that's when we started the Joint Emergency Operations Plan. But the plan currently that you see is as a product of a effort from the Central Shenandoah Planning District, and we elected this year just to use our task force folks between the three jurisdictions to go through, update some contacts. Some simple things that was updated was we added rah-rah in the list for food and their acronym. We had to update the contact for the sheriff had changed since the last time. Some leadership updates and contact numbers and things like that that we went through. And I would like to take an opportunity to thank Kevin Moore, our deputy chief, Trent Roberts, and Waylon Miller from Buena Vista, Trent being in Lexington, as they spent a lot of time going through this, making sure it was correct and updated. So I'll entertain any questions.
Does the board have any questions, comments, concerns?
Just, I think it was very well done.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve as presented
So moved.
and a second?
Second. You got it?
All right, Mr. Day,
Yes.
Ms. Ayers,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
and Chair votes yes as well. Thank you. Next up, we have the consideration of jail commission agreement amendment. Mr. Suter.
Yes, Rockbridge Regional Jail Commission was created back in 1986. The 5 localities here, the 2 cities and 2 towns in the county came together to create that. And the agreement, the original agreement created a board of directors made up of a representative from the county, the city of Lexington, the city of Buena Vista, and also a 5th representative. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Rockbridge has 2 members. Lexington and Buena Vista each have 1 each. The 5th member was appointed by the board of supervisors, and it alternates between a resident of Glasgow and Goshen, and annually go through the process of soliciting nominations from one or the other town council, whoever's turn it is. Then the board votes on the recommendation, and they also have the option of appointing another resident from the town whose turn it is. If they don't agree with that nomination, I'm not aware of that the board's ever disagreed with a nomination that's come from the towns, but that option is there. The appointed member must then be sworn in by the clerk of the circuit court to begin serving a 1-year term. And the term is January 15th through January 14th annually. The requirement to alternate the position every year has led to somewhat cumbersome turnover, decreasing the effectiveness of the representative to both their town and the commission. Jail commission last year began discussion. We actually discussed it prior to that, but serious discussion about it last year on a potential for the partners to amend the commission agreement to allow the 5th representative to be appointed to a 3-year term instead of just a 1-year term. The position would still alternate between Goshen and Glasgow every 3 years. And though not specifically referenced in the attachment for your consideration, the intent of the parties has been for this change to take effect retroactively, so that the current town representative, which is Goshen's Jeff Schaefer, would complete a full 3-year term. Thus, and if in agreement with the amendment to this agreement, the recommendation would be then to extend Mr. Schaefer's term for an additional 2 years, expiring January 14th, 2025. Currently, it expires this upcoming January 14th. It would just be 2 years beyond that. One additional change to this agreement is to align the state code and to include the local sheriffs as members of the commission. State code authorizing the creation of regional jail commissions was amended in 1998, and that was, of course, well after this commission was formed. The code amendment specifies that the sheriffs of participating localities are now automatically members of the commission board. So the attached agreement has been approved by all other participating localities. And this would just, that piece of it would just align it with the state code. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
What are the term limits for Glasgow and Goshen Town Council? 2 years or 4 years?
Ooh, I don't know about term limits.
Well, my question is, if they're only elected for 2 years, why would we run them for a 3-year cycle?
So it doesn't, that's one thing. It does not have to be it's doesn't mention town council at all. It can be any member of, any resident of Goshen or Glasgow during their
It doesn't
term.
have to be a member of the.
Correct.
Okay.
I mean, it can be, and even if that council member was to go off, decide not to run or be defeated, or just resign, they could still continue to be.
Yeah, my thought process was that if the towns had a council member doing it to keep them updated with what's going on with jail commission, you would want it to coincide with them being an elected official.
Certainly, but once you appoint for a 3-year, you take a recommendation from that town, you appoint for a 3-year, if that appointment stands, unless that person resigns.
Did you have any conversations with either of the towns that would, what I'm talking about would even come into play or not? They didn't bring it up. So
They didn't bring it up. They were happy with this. I think it's somewhat difficult year after year rolling forward. And that's part of the reason for the suggestion is trying to get someone to fill this role.
I think it's a great idea. I just didn't want it to cause confusion down the road if it was. Is there any other questions, concerns, comments? Is there a motion to approve the agreement? And a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Day,
Yes.
Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
Ms. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
And chair votes yes. Is there a motion to vote to extend the Goshen Representative Jeff Schaefer term from through January 14th of 2025?
So move.
And a second?
Second.
All right, let's hear it. I got him back. Mr. Day,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Ms. Ayers,
Yes.
Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
and chair votes yes as well.
Thank you.
That's the only two things you need on that, correct? Only 2 votes you need on that.
Those are the only 2 votes. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Next up, we have the Board of Equalization appointments for all the districts. Term will run from January 1st of 2023 through December 31st of 2023.
Nope, that's wrong. Oh, no,
Oh,
I'm
that's
sorry.
right.
That is right. My apologies. We were just talking about dates and I've confused myself.
You should know better than for a supervisor to be wrong. All right. Well, hold on one second. For South River District, looks like we have application from Ben Day. From Buffalo Magisterial District, we have Catherine Gilbert. From Karst Creek, we have Steve Hart. From Natural Bridge, we have Torben Pedersen. And from Walker's Creek, we have Glenn Wilson. Is there a motion to approve all 5 applicants?
I make a motion. I would say, when does the Board of Equalization meet?
Be the first part of next year.
And what time? Do they have responsibilities during the day? The hours of?
They will, yes, they will. They meet during the day, and I'm not gonna swear to it, but I think they have some evening availability, depending on what the next step in the process is for the actual assessor to have meetings. Wingate would sit down with folks in the first 3 weeks of December, roughly. Not sure about the final dates, but then the Board of Equalization would be on in the first part of the first quarter next year.
Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Lyons.
Yes.
Ms. Ayers,
Yes.
Mr. Day,
Yes.
and Chair votes yes as well. All right, now it's 6 o'clock. We have a public hearing for Swami Carmen, 2215 North Lee Highway, Lexington, Virginia, application for special exception permit, commercial greenhouse and agriculture and transitional zoning district.
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Slayton, how are
Yes,
you?
Members of the board, thank you very much. I have a brief PowerPoint presentation prior to turning the floor over to Mr. Carmen. 1 second, please. All right. Yes, this is a special exception permit for a commercial greenhouse in the agricultural transitional zoning district. The applicant is Mr. Swami Carmen in presence in this evening. Property is under consideration as owned by Swami Carmen, tax maps number 62-4-1L and 62-4-1H. So actually on December 14th, I believe it was, there was a deed of merger filed with the clerk of the court. So these two parcels are now legally defined as, for tax rolls and zoning purposes, as one parcel. So what that means, I'm going to turn this into a laser pointer here. This was going to be 1H here with the house consisting of 2 acres, and the vacant land here was 1L consisting of 2.75 acres. So what the deed of merger did was vacate these two common property lines between the two. Did that for setback purposes for a proposed greenhouse. So again, the parcel is now one tax parcel identified as 62-4-1H, consisting of 4.75 acres total. Property is located in the agricultural transitional zoning district. A little bit about the special exception proposal itself. Per section 603B.02-2 of the Rockbridge County regulations, agricultural is a permitted use in the AT agricultural transitional zoning district. However, per section 603B.03-2, commercial greenhouses are used by special exception in the AT zoning district. The applicant again is Swami Carmen, doing business as Junga Chai LLC. In addition to the commercial greenhouses, additional uses on the property include growing tea, rice, and other supplemental crops, construction of a pond, and accessory structure used as a tasting room for beverages. The commercial greenhouse is the only item under special exception permit. Staff did feel like it would be beneficial to give everyone the overall plans of the property, but also point out that the only thing that's under special exception is the commercial greenhouse. The growing of the tea, growing of the rice, even the tasting room, all of that would be considered an agricultural use. Of course, it's permitted use in the agricultural zoning district. Per the Planning Commission recommendation on October 12th, 2022, the Planning Commission held its public hearing and recommended approval of the special exception with the following condition. Approval contingent upon County Building Department and Virginia Department of Transportation VDOT approvals. With that, I'd like to turn the floor over to the applicant. I'll pull up his PowerPoint presentation. Right, the floor is yours, sir. Absolutely.
Thanks for the great introduction. Thank you, the board chairman and board members, for giving me the opportunity to present before you. My name is Swami Karnam, and I moved to the US about 31 years ago in 1991, and have been in Virginia for about 18 years in Northern Virginia as a software engineer. And I'm looking forward to switching careers and going back to what my family used to do, which is farming in my retirement. And so I want to get back into agriculture, and found an opportunity to buy a piece of property in Rockbridge Flats and in Lexington. And I moved here 4 months ago. The property in Rockbridge Flats I purchased about a year ago. It's on a hill, and I had dreams of turning it into a terrace farm similar to what I saw in my travels to Peru and to Nepal. And I found that I liked the way they cultivate their rice and tea, and that's what I wanted to grow up here. So the greenhouses, the tea, it takes about 3 years for the plants to grow, and the first 6 months, it helps to maintain a consistent temperature of 70 degrees. And so the greenhouses are for the tea. The rice is mainly just grows in the summer. And so the application is for the mainly for the tea. A little bit about a tea. Once the tea plants are established, they can grow for thousands of years. They're like olive plants, olive trees. So on the right side of the slide is a tea plant that's 3,200 years old, and it's on the left side is one of the 10 plants that I planted on my property for about 6 months ago. And rice is grown every year, and in this area, I guess I would plant it during the hottest time of the year, or just before, like in June, and it takes about 3 to 4 months. It needs a lot of water, and so the pond is for mainly for the rice. I moved in June, but planted a little bit as an experiment in August, so that was a little bit late. So this year I won't have any crop, but I'm hoping to do better next year. I did plant a few other crops, about 100 lavender plants. So these were I was hoping to mix with the tea and also with the beer and rice that I was gonna brew out of the rice, and a few other flowering plants like hibiscus and jasmine. And these also I was hoping to use grow them in the greenhouse. I did plant a few fruit plants and trees, which will not require the greenhouse. The greenhouses, I have a typo there. They're 27 feet wide by 131 feet. They're plastic film covered over metal tubes, and I'm getting 2 of them. One is about 12 feet high, and the other is 14 feet. One of them has a wood heater to start out with. The pond, there is a juniper. I guess I just learned out that junipers are also called cedar plant trees, and so I'll be doing a pond around the juniper tree and feeding it off the roofs of my house and the tasting room and the 2 greenhouses and just the terrain in general. The tasting room is 2 floors. It's about 27 feet high. 83 feet long by 33 feet wide. It's a steel building and 2 floors. The second one is a mezzanine with about 1,500 square feet with a seating area, bar, and a store. The main floor is 2,500 square feet, but it would be the brewery. I guess it will have the steel vats and stuff, and the tea processing plant. And that's all I have. I hope you would approve my request. And if you have any questions, please stop by or email me.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
Mr. Cornum, you mentioned heating the greenhouses with a wood-fired system.
Yes, sir.
Have you already obtained that? Do you have that in
Yes.
place, or and what do you anticipate using to firewood off your property? You're gonna
Yes, the property in Rockbridge Pad is 140 acres of wooded area, and I was hoping to clear a few acres every year and convert that into a terrace field. And the wood from that to use in the heater.
Interesting. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Stop sharing real quick, excuse me.
At this time, we will open up the public hearing. Is there anyone signed up to wishing to address the board?
There's no one signed up at this
Okay.
time.
Is there anyone present wishing to address the board on this issue? And was there any written comments?
There are no written comments.
Okay. Anyone online wishing to address the board?
Just Ed Smith.
All right, then at this point, we will close the public hearing. Is there any discussion on the matter? Questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve
So moved.
and a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
Ms. Ayers,
Yes.
Mr. Day,
Yes.
and Chair votes yes as well. Good luck with the operation. All right, let's see here. Are there any board member comments or committee reports or anything for anyone? All right.
See you, sir.
Would like to point out, I believe next week is Monday's Halloween. Everyone be safe. Make sure you watch out for all the trick or treaters out on the streets as they'll be walking around. Hearing nothing else, is there a,
Mr. Chairman, I did have one. Are there board reports this evening? Am I missing? I mean, staff reports?
Oh, it's less. Less.
Yeah.
Can we do it just once?
that's the first. one.
Oh, sorry. Getting ahead of myself here. I'm just excited about everything that's going on. So, yeah.
Don't make us see it twice, Mom.
Fair enough.
We'll have those prepared for you at the next meeting.
Thanks, sir.
Is there a motion to adjourn
So moved.
and a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Day,
Yes.
Ms. Ayers,
Yes.
and Chair votes yes as well. Thank everyone for attending.